Okay, I'm just sharing my screen. Have a look at it. Okay, so so this is where we stopped, right? So the verification process we have seen. What is that? Show run will help us to view the running configuration. I'm sure somebody has joined. I guess almost all of them are there. 2, 4, 6, 8. Only one is missing. Who's that? I'm not sure. 6, 8. One more Mahesh is missing. Mahesh Tepireddy is missing. Okay, fine, no issues. So we have seen certain verification commands in the morning. Let's have a small recollection on that, and then we can recap on that, and then we can move on. Show run is used to view the running configuration, whereas show start is used to view the startup configuration. We know the difference between running and startup configuration. There is no difference how it works on the Cisco routers. The same way it is also going to be working on your Cisco ASA devices also. Running configuration is the configuration with which the device is operating with, whereas startup configuration is the stored configuration. Am I audible? So let me check. Okay, fine. Right, so show memory will be giving you the details like the total memory and available memory. What is that? What is the memory utilized? What is the total memory? And what is the free memory? What is the amount of free memory available? That's what we will be able to get it. Show interface is going to be helping you to view the characteristics of the physical interface, right? Name if will be helping you to see the names, the logical names associated with any physical interface. Show name if is going to be listing you the names associated with the interface as well as the security level associated to that interface. Show CPU usage, the total utilization of your CPU. Of course, it will also be having certain delta values like past 1 minute average, 5 minutes average, like that. They'll be having different average values. Then how about the show version? What is that show version will do? Let me open up the item and let's check it out. The device is running or not? Nope, the device is not running. Let me connect to one of the device. Okay. Show version. What and all we will be able to see with show version? I think morning you have done the lab, right? In that lab exercise, I have asked you to execute the show version. I have also explained certain output on that. Am I right? Okay. Now, what are the thing that you will be able to see with the show version command? Could you please tell me? Okay. Then what else? Okay, I'm hearing one more voice. May I know who's that? Yeah, Guru. Yes. What are all the information you can fetch from show version command? Okay, I can see only ASA's version, or I can see ASDM version as well. Okay, can I see ASA CLI version? Yes, both the versions will be available. Apart from that, what else you can see? The number of available interfaces, and there is something called as activation key. Based on that activation key only, the features whatever is available, it has been enabled or not, you will be able to see that. So with the help of application key, the ASA can understand that these are all the features got enabled. There are so many features available with the show version. You can see everything, and you can also see the status of those features, whether those features have been enabled or not. See here. So you see that the current operating system version is 9.7, which is the CLI version, and you see that the device manager, the ASDM version is 7.7. Can you please tell me this ASDM version is compatible with CLI or not? What is the condition for the compatibility? Okay. So greater than or equal to -2 of CLI. In that case, you will be able to see. And you can also see when you have multiple operating system images, multiple images that you have stored in the flash, you can also check using which of the image file the system got booted up, and you can see what is the version, hardware, right, the amount of resources available, But actually speaking, it's a Xeon processor that has been taken from my server, the actual server on which it is running. Okay, and then you can also see how many interfaces you have. See that management interface is there. Apart from that, I have 7 interfaces, and I can also see the respective MAC addresses. Okay, what is this IRQ? Anybody remember this from your engineering thing? On your OS architecture, how many of you have done your engineering? Hopefully everyone, I guess. Very long back, huh? Actually speaking, interrupt request, that's called as what? Interrupt request. It's called as a handler. For each and every component you need a handler, right? That's what the interrupt request is all about. Anyway, so the license mode is smart licensing. Don't worry, I will explain you what is smart licensing over a period of time. Then this is an unlicensed version. So one unlicensed version is going to be having a limited set of features that we are going to be testing there. You can also check what is the level of security, what is the features that we have. See, maximum physical interface is 50. This is the limitation. Of course, this model can have maximum of 10 interfaces. The number of VLANs that you can create. Tell me, why do we have to create VLANs here? Why do we have to create VLANs? So to map it. Of course, the firewall can also be kept in layer 2 mode. You remember that? Transparent mode. By that time also we will be making use of this VLANs. Okay. The number of inside hosts, how many devices can be connected to the internal network when you are using this appliance? We don't have any limitation. When it comes to the failover, it will allow only active standby. It will not support active. The current version, the license version what we have. So if you wanted to have, you need to have the separate license with which you will be able to go for active. The DES encryption is enabled, triple DES is enabled, and why this context cannot be enabled? In ASA V, you will not be able to work with context. If you don't have the context, then you're losing the concept of active. Okay, I'll tell you, we have these discussions to be, we will be having this discussion later in this course, right? So there is something called as a context. We don't have any licenses for that. I think someone is joining. Oh, Sridhar is joining back again. Okay, so we cannot create any context on the virtual editions. Even with your Juniper VSRX, you will not be able to create the virtual system because the concept of virtualization is already there. If you want one more firewall, all you have to do is deploy that firewall. That's it. So you don't need to worry about creating multiple firewalls, right? So AnyConnect Premium PS, you can have only 2. AnyConnect Essentials got disabled because it is unlicensed. Regular IPsec VPN PS, you can have 250, right? So this is the limitation what we have. See? And this is the serial number, and through which we will be able to purchase the license, and using an activation key, you will be able to activate the features. So clustering got disabled. Then you can also see the rest of the features like what shared licenses. There is nothing called shared licenses enabled, and these are all the features you can get it. Okay, fine. So that's what the show version. And then we also have a show IP address. What set of information you can see with the show IP address? What set of information? You have executed this command in the morning exercise. You remember that? But you can see 2 set of information, right? What is this? There is no IP address configured. You can also see system IP address and current IP address. No. So when you come to failover, we'll understand this one. Okay, see, when you're configuring an IP address, see here, interface gig ethernet 0/0, I say that IP address 10.1.1.1 with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. There is also an see, where is it? Standby address. Standby is going to be 10.1.1.2. I can say like this. The meaning of this is when I'm going with the failover, you remember in HSRP, you will be working with the 2 set of devices. Of course, you can have more than 2 devices, but at a minimum, you have to have 2 devices, right? So one device is going to be considered as the primary, and the other device is going to be considered as the secondary. Am I right? So we will also configure a virtual IP address. Apart from this, the virtual IP address can be a separate IP address or any one of the device IP address. Am I right? Can I do this or not? Correct. Now, my point is, when you have a virtual IP address and you have two devices, which of the device is responsible for that virtual IP in HSRP, VRRP? Hello? You're getting my point? You have two devices. Okay, let me go to my whiteboard and then I will explain that one so that you will be able to understand what I'm asking here. You have a pair of devices here, okay? Then they are connecting to a switch. So this physical interface has an IP address of 10.1.1.2 and this physical side 10.1.1.3, and then I'm creating a virtual ID, a virtual router ID. I call this as anything. I'm just calling it as 10, and this guy is going to be associated with 10.1.1 anything, any IP address from the same range. But my point is, who will be responsible for responding if any request is given to 10.1.1.1? Okay. Now assume that this guy has taken the role of active and this guy has taken the role of standby. Now router 1 is responsible for any request given to 10.1.1.1. Now if something goes wrong with this active device, the virtual IP will be owned by the new active device. The standby will become active immediately. That virtual IP address will be owned by the new active device. Correct? Now same way, what happens in ASA firewall, you will be having a pair of devices for the failover. We will be having a detailed discussions on this. Now what happens here, you will configure only one device. Of course the basic configuration needs to be done on the secondary device with respect to failover, then the configuration sync will happen. On the primary device, what I'm saying is, when I say 10.1.1.1 mask of 255.255.255.0, and then I'm saying that standby IP is 10.1.1.2. When I do this one, I'm giving the instruction to the firewall, whichever the device among these two devices are taking the role of active will use the primary, whichever the device has taken the role of standby will use the standby IP. You're getting my point? Is this clear? Yes, while you are configuring the IP address, you will configure like this. IP address 10.1.1.1 255.255.255.0. That's it. Normally this IP address will be taken. But in a failover scenario, you also need to configure the IP address for the standby device. That's where I'm using the keyword called the standby along with an IP address. The meaning of this command is what? Out of these two devices, any one of the device will be taking the role of active. Am I right or not? The configuration is going to be synchronized between these devices or not? They will be synchronized and one of the device will be taking the role of active. Correct or not? Okay, whichever the device has taken the role of active, this IP address will be owned by him, the first IP address. Any device which has taken the role of standby, 1 minute, network labs calling me. Yeah, Ravi. Okay. Anyway, I started doing some theory. After that, I'll check that out. Just 5 minutes, I'll check that out and then let you know. Yeah. Right? See here, whichever the device has taken the role of standby, for whom this IP address will be assigned. You are doing the configuration in a single statement. Depending on the role of the device, the IP address will be assigned. You're getting me? Yeah, of course, you will be configuring it on the single device only. The failover related configuration, you will do it. The configuration will sync. He will also be having the same detail, 10.1.1.1. 255.255.255.0. The standby IP address is 10.1.1.2. This gets synchronized from the primary device. Now what happens, because this device has taken the role of standby, he is responsible for the standby device. Okay, that is where it is saying that when it says show IP address, you see that the system IP address and the current IP address. If you don't have any, see, we don't have the failover configured, right? Obviously, the current IP address as well as the system IP address, both is going to be the same. Okay, don't confuse yourself. Just think about the primary and standby concept. Anyway, we will have the detailed discussion as well as the configuration demonstration will happen during the failover session. Till this point, whatever I have explained, the primary and standby, the active and standby concept is clear or not with respect to the IP address assignment? Okay, that's enough. That's enough. I'm sorry, I don't get you, Ranita. I think you missed it. I think you missed it. I told you that only the failover configuration we will do it on the secondary device. Once it becomes the part of a failover group, the configurations are going to be synchronized from the primary device. The configuration statement will be the same, right? Sorry? See, the secondary device, from where you will get the configuration? You're asking me or you're telling me? A question cannot be an answer for a question, maybe. But see here, when you're going for the clustering, you normally do the configuration on one device, and that configuration will be synchronized with all of the members. That's the concept of clustering. Right? Now I have done all the IP address configuration without the standby, assuming that there is no standby configurations done, and you are making this guy to be part of the failover group. What will be the IP address for him? You cannot configure it manually. That's the point I'm making it. You cannot configure manually on the secondary device that this is your IP address. That's it. Whomever has taken the role of active, they will respond for the first IP address. Whomever has taken the role of standby, they will take this IP address. They will respond for this IP address. Okay? Right. Any other questions? Okay, so show IP address, show route, we have to see the routing table. Anyway, later on we will see that one. Show interface IP brief, I think I have explained you, right? We have seen the show route command output. We have also seen the show interface IP brief command. Am I right? We have seen these two. Okay, well and good. So date and time, how do you set up the date and time on Cisco iOS devices? I think morning I have shown the demonstration of this date and time. How you configure the date and time on your Cisco iOS devices, the same way you have to do the date and time configurations on Cisco ASA as well. So clock set manually if you wanted to set it up. But do you think that we will be doing manual clock configurations on each and every device within the infrastructure? Okay. Now, what is the problem with manually configuring the time, date and time on each and every device? One of the area where the logs, you will not be getting the proper timing information. The second thing, if you have any time-based access list or time-based configurations, you may not be able to achieve exactly what you want to achieve. Probably, see, manual configurations are prone to human errors, the configuration errors. Probably you would have forgotten to set the time zone, or probably you would have missed the daylight saving settings. Automatically the time is not going to be matching at all. Am I right? So it is recommended, always we are recommending to synchronize their timing from NTP server. Sorry? Hello? Okay, fine. So all we have to do is we just need to make sure that the NTP server is being configured. If you have an NTP server, you can make the rest of the devices to synchronize their time from the NTP server. All you have to do is what? The IP address of your NTP server, and then the source IP address is more important. Why we have to define the source interface? Any idea? What is the significance of it? Even without giving the source interface name, if you configure the NTP server IP address, will it work or not? It should work, but in production scenario, assume that you have the NTP server positioned in your headquarters or in data center. From your location, from your office location to that data center or the head office, you have IPsec VPN tunnel. Okay, think about like this. See, my NTP server over here is, let's say, 172.16.1.10. Now we have a regular internet connection, and this is where I have my device, and we wanted to have a tunnel. We have a firewall here, right? We have some sort of connectivity, and then the tunnel is being established between these two sites. Now the internal devices, okay, the internal devices, if they are configured to synchronize their time from the NTP server, there wouldn't be any problem. They can synchronize. But think about this firewall. If it is being configured to synchronize the time from this NTP server, and you are configuring the NTP server IP address as 172.16.1.10, what would be the egress interface according to the routing table? Based on that, the source IP address will be chosen. Am I right? We have seen on your first day what would be the source IP if multiple interfaces are there. According to the routing table, egress interface will be chosen. Based on the egress interface, the source IP address will be decided. Am I right or not? Okay, my point here is, on this tunnel, what traffic will be sent and received? We will say that our internal network to the data center network. Assume that this is 10.1.1.0/24. The interesting traffic, what we normally say is the source IP address should be from 10.1.1.0/24. The destination network is 172.16.1.0/24. We wanted to tunnel. Okay. Now the destination is 172.16.1.0, but if any traffic is being initiated on this firewall, according to the routing table, it is not going to be having the source IP address in 10.1.1.0 range. Because of that, this interesting traffic will not be matching, and hence the packet cannot be sent through the tunnel. Do you agree or not? So while you are identifying your NTP server, you should also say that, what is it called? This is my NTP server IP address, and I wanted to use this interface as my source interface so that the interesting traffic will match. Then the traffic can be tunneled and the NTP server could be communicated. You agree? This is the significance of specifying the source interface. It's not mandatory that on all of the devices you may need to mention it, but in some of the cases you may also need to mention. Fine. So that's what we are saying. And one more thing, in NTP, there is something called the stratums, correct? What is stratum? Okay, what is the significance to me? See, I am an NTP client, okay? I am getting the time message, synchronization message from two different NTP servers. Which one I will trust? That's where the stratums comes into picture. Stratum number says how near or how close, how much it is so synchronized with the NTP server. The NTP server will be having the stratum number of 0 and then 1, 2, 3 like this. If I say stratum number 1, I am very close to the NTP server. Say 2, that means I am not that close as like NTP stratum number 1. So when an NTP client is getting an NTP synchronization message from two different servers, if both of them are having different stratum numbers, then what I do, I will start trusting the server which is having lowest stratum number. So you have multiple roles within your NTP. What is that? Client, server, and then peers. Client, who is going to be synchronizing the messages from the server, who will be sending the synchronization messages to the client, and peer, who will be responsible for sending the synchronization messages to the subordinate as well as the other peer. Okay, there's one thing that you need to remember here. So normally when you're enabling the authentication, who will authenticate who? You have client, you also have server, right? Who will authenticate who? Which message is going to be authenticated? The client will be authenticated by the server, or server will be authenticated by the client? Normal cases. Normally, as a user, you are trying to access the resource, you will be authenticated by the server. Correct? In this case, the synchronization messages are going to be coming from the server. So the client takes the responsibility of authenticating the messages that it has received from the server. You understand what I'm saying? Only in NTP this will happen on the other side. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, so then you can authenticate them and do that one. Syslog, what is that you need to know about Syslog? So you have variety of logs that can be generated by multiple devices within your infrastructure. You also can take the responsibility of sending these messages to a centralized logging server. Because of that, while the monitoring is going on, the monitoring team no need to be individually logging into each and every device for doing that. So because the logs are being collected from multiple devices on a single server, the monitoring team needs to monitor those messages from a single location so that the complete infrastructure could be monitored, right? So in this example, what is that we are trying to do is we are saying that I have a server called 10.0.1.11 that is where the Syslog service is running, and this IP address or the Syslog server is reachable via inside interface. See, this is the name of the interface through which the Syslog server is reachable. Do you understand what I'm saying? The Syslog server IP address is 10.0.1.11, which is reachable via inside interface. What is that inside? The name if command we were using to name an interface, right? So inside, outside, DMZ, you can give any name. So what we are trying to say is this log server, this server could be reachable via an interface which has been named as inside. Okay. And then what is the level of logging needs to be sent to this log server? So which are all the places you can send the logs? We can send the logs to ASDM, we can send a log to buffer, we can send the logs to log server, we can also send the logs to CSM, we can send the logs to SNMP server, we can send the logs through an email, we can do many things. Okay. Now, so where do you want to send is what decided here, 10.0.1.11. And then what is the level of logging you want? The logging levels decide the criticality of the messages that you are interested in to be logged to this server. So starting from 0, ending with 7 is being considered as the levels, right? Logging level 0 means emergencies will be logged. 1 means alerts. When I say 1, it includes 0 as well. When I say 3, the logs are going to be, the logging is going to happen for the messages which falls under the category of 0, 1, 2 and 3. That's how the log messages are going to be collected. Right? So I'm saying that logging trap debugging, which means 7th level of debugging, that means totally 8 levels are there, 0 to 7. The last level of logging is going on. And this information means all the log categories are going to be collected and forwarded to 10.0.1.11. Is that clear? Is this clear or not? Okay. And then I guess you know what is logging timestamp and logging device ID is as the host name. When I'm sending the message, I need to identify myself. What would be my identification when I see that information on the log server? My host name. It could be an IP address, it could also be host name. Normally it will be host name. On the log server, you can also see the IP address who has sent this message. Then you can make sure that you are enabling the logging. Even after you configure everything, if you don't enable it, the logging is not going to be happening. As like we say logging on Cisco devices. The Cisco iOS based devices, we have some command called as logging on. When I say logging on, what I mean to say, the logging configuration, whatever I have done, accordingly the log details are going to be collected. The logs are going to be collected and forwarded to the respective destination. Without this logging enabling, the log is not going to be collected and forwarded. Any questions as of now? Sorry? That is what? The level. I told you, right? 0 to 7 is what is going to be considered as the level of logging you wanted to enable. How do you want to send it? As a trap, I want to send it. No, it is for logging in. It's a Syslog server only. It's a Syslog message only. Sorry, I'm hearing one more question. I'm not sure. Yes. The Syslog server identified as 10.0.1.11 and reachable via an interface named as inside. You will be naming each and every interface of your ASA, am I right or not? Today morning we have seen that, right? So that name of the interface says that via this interface only you have to go to reach your Syslog server. When we get into the routing, again you can understand what is the significance of it. Is that clear? Guru, right? Guru Charan, right? Okay. This IP is the Syslog server IP, and this says that the egress interface to reach that IP. Any questions? Okay. Now the logging level, that's what the logging level is, what the trap. Then you can also take the control of what set of messages you wanted to see. See, by default, for each and every log message, Cisco developed a specific category to it, assigned to it, right? So for example, 302013, it is associated to logging level 3. Okay, I'm saying that there is a message. That message is going to be identified as by a message ID. That message ID has been generated and configured by Cisco itself. This message, for this event, this message needs to be generated. This message will be identified by so and so message ID, and this message is going to be part of this category that has been decided by Cisco. Do you understand what I'm saying? But if you feel that in your infrastructure, this category is a wrong category according to your infrastructure, you wanted to move that category, the message, to a different category, you can do that by giving the command logging message. The message identifier is 302013. What is the current level of association? I'm not sure, but I would like to set this logging message to a category called 4. What is that fourth category? You can see that warnings. You understand what I'm saying? See, for example, you are getting a priority 1 ticket. Okay, you are getting a priority 1 ticket. According to your SLA, this instruction or this issue is not a P1 ticket. What you do? Right? So according to your SLA, it is not a priority 1 ticket. You are downgrading to P2 or P3, correct or not? So the same way, every log message has been associated to a severity level by Cisco. But if you feel that in your infrastructure, a specific message not supposed to be associated to the Cisco's recommended severity level, instead it has to be associated to your own defined security level. You can move the message from one security level to another security level by using the command logging message 302013 to a level called 4. Is that clear? Okay. Same way, if you don't want a specific log message to be collected, I can say that no logging message by the followed by the ID. Now, if I need to know the logging ID, how do I know about it? That's what the message identifier. So every log, you will be having certain identifier. What is that? The level of the log, the criticality, the severity, then timestamp, logging device IP address, logging device identifier, message identifier. All these set of informations will be there on a syslog message. Right? So by knowing that message identifier, you can conclude that whether you wanted to record this log or not. If you feel that unnecessarily we are recording this log message, just go and disable that. No logging message followed by the message identifier. At the same time, you feel that the collected log has been posted in a wrong category according to your infrastructure. You can also move that message to a different category by having the command called as logging message followed by the message ID to the level what you want. Got it? Good. Yes. Okay, now you tell me the privilege level we were talking about, right? Privilege level 0, privilege level 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we also have 14 and 15. Every command that you execute is associated to a privilege level 0, 1 or 14. That's how 1, 14, 15. This is how we will be having the privilege level, the commands associated to a specific privilege level. But you want a command to be used under the privilege level of 2, what do you do? What do you do? You will be associating that command from level 14 or 15 to level 16. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, right. Now let's say that configure terminal as a command. It is available for the privilege number 14. I have a user called as Gopi. He has been associated privilege number 10. Now, if Gopi is logging into this device, he will not be able to execute configure terminal command. Am I right? Now, you want Gopi to execute this configure terminal command. What do you do? See, I can map this Gopi administrator to privilege level 14. That is option number 1. Or I can move the configure terminal command from 14 to level 10. That is also possible. I can do this or I can do that, or anything I can do. If I promote Gopi to level 14, he will be able to execute configure terminal. Or I can move the configure terminal from level 14 to level 10 without moving user Gopi from 10 to 14. The command can be executed. But here the point is, it is not only going to be available for Gopi, any user who has the privilege level of 10 or higher will be in a position to execute the configure terminal. Right? Okay. Now, I have a message 302013. This is the message ID of a log. According to Cisco, this has been categorized into level 3. What is that level 3? You see that level 3 is going to be error. Okay. But in your infrastructure, this is not an error. It is an informational message. Right? So whenever an error message is being triggered, immediately your NOC team is going to be sending an alert message to the respective team. Right? But according to your infrastructure, this is not an error. You don't want to alert the NOC team. In turn, the NOC will be alerting the admin team. You're getting my point? Now what I do is I can move this 302013 to level 5. So the device, whenever it is generating this 302013, instead of putting that message in level 3, it will put it in level 5. So the NOC team no need to be alerted. So admin team no need to be alerted. Is that clear? Okay. Yes. Yes, that would be the right way of doing it, correct? Right, so then see here, where and all the logs can be enabled. You can send it to the syslog, you can send it to, where is that, console, you can send the log messages to the terminal monitor, buffer, you can also send it as a trap, and you wanted to send it to mail, you can also send the logs to ASDM. See that for all of them it has been disabled, only the syslog is enabled. That means the log messages are going to be sent only to the syslog server, not to the console, not to the buffer, not to anywhere, except the syslog messages. The logs are not going to be sent anywhere. Clear? Okay. Yes, please. Yes, please. Please. What is, which level in the sense? Show logging. Show run logging, you can see the level, debugging or what it is. Here also, facility is 20. Where it is mentioned? Here it is. Warnings, yes. Show logging command will help you to understand that. Anything else? Okay. So, successfully we have completed, getting started to work with adaptive security appliance. See, we are starting very slowly, we are now picking up the speed, okay? So, the purpose of going slowly in the beginning is what? We have to understand the architecture first, right? So, we need to understand everything first, and then on top of that, while we are building, it will be going faster. Okay, anyway, they have sent an email to me. Let me check this out. Yes, I have received it. Okay, they have allocated all of them. Can you please note down your IP addresses, please? Can you see my screen? Can you please note it down? Meanwhile, I'll attend this call.